Okay, let's figure this out in the key of A minor. Now, one thing you'll notice is that when we're talking about major keys, we tend to jump right to C major because it's got no accidentals. It's kind of the easiest one to wrap our head around because we don't have to worry about any accidentals or a key signature. When we're in minor keys, the same thing kind of applies to A minor because if you remember what we just learned in the previous section, A minor also doesn't have any accidentals or any key signature. So it's kind of the easiest to just understand without dealing with any accidentals. So that tends to be our go-to to explain things. So you'll see me working in A minor a little bit here. So let's draw an A minor scale. Okay, there is A minor. Now, let's figure out our diatonic chord progression. So let's walk through it the long way just to prove the point that it works the same. The concept is still exactly the same. I've got an A, I'm going to skip B, go to C. I'm going to skip F, and I'm going to go to E. And I'm going to do that all the way up, every other note. Just going to kind of do it fast forward to save us some time. Oops. Okay, there we go. Goes up pretty high. Cool. So let's have a look at what we ended up with by doing this, because that's really what the diatonic chord progression is. It's figuring out what chords these are, what major and minor chords they are. Now, remember how we learn if the chord is major or minor. We did this in the last class. I don't think we've talked about it in this class yet. And I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but just as a quick refresher, we can count half steps to get to our third. And remember, the third, the middle note, is what determines if it's a major or a minor chord. All of the fifths, which are the outside notes, are going to be perfect fifths, except for the one that is a diminished, which we'll get to in just a second. So let's figure out our pattern. So our one chord is a minor chord, right? That shouldn't be too surprising. We're in the key of A minor, so the chord built on A is going to be minor. So here we go, A minor. Now, the 2 chord, if you remember in a major key, the 7th chord is what gave us our diminished chord, and that was the ugly one, the one we kind of avoid. In a minor key, it's the 2 chord. This is our diminished chord. Kind of has that funky sound to it. So the 2 chord is diminished in minor. It's kind of weird, but 2 chord is diminished in minor. The 3 chord is a major. So far we have minor, diminished, major. The 4 chord is minor. The 5 chord is minor. The 6 chord is major. The 7th chord is major. And then we're back to the 1 chord up an octave, which is minor. So what does that give us? That gives us a pattern of minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. Okay, so that is the pattern for our diatonic chord progression in a minor key. So it's different than major, right? It's kind of scrambled around, but it's not completely scrambled around. There is something else to it that I'm going to show you in a minute. But I want to talk about one other thing really quick, just as a quick refresher, because I don't think I made this clear just a second ago. Let me pull up our keyboard. How do we know if these are major or minor chords? If you're wondering, because I just kind of shot them out and told you, but I want you to know how to know. Remember that the simplest way we can figure out if these are major or minor chords, if we don't know anything, if we're just looking at a chord and we don't know what key or anything we're in, what we do is we take the root of the chord, in this case is A, and then the next note of the chord, we figure out what interval that is. So here's an A, and here's a C, the second note. And if it's a minor third, it's going to be a whole step and a half step away. So here's a whole step and here's a half step. So that is a whole step and a half step away. That's a minor third. So that makes that a minor chord. Let's go to a major chord. Here's a major chord, F to A. Here's an F, here's an A. So this one is a whole step. That's a whole step. And then this is a whole step. That's 2 whole steps away, and that's a major third. So if those first 2 notes are a whole step and a half step away, it's a minor chord. If they are 2 whole steps away, it's a major chord. The diminished one is a minor third here. So these are a half step, a whole step and a half step away. And these are a whole step and a half step away. So this is like a double minor chord, whereas the rest of them won't have that. Okay, so that's how we do that. All right, up next, let's talk about a little trick that I've been kind of alluding to memorize this a little bit better using relative keys.